We are talking to Mr. Djankou, who is an international cooperative expert, an educator, and an ILO ex-official. Thank you so much for coming here to talk with us.
Pleasure to be with you.
And this is the centenary of ILO COOP, so we very much would like to hear about your engagement with cooperatives, starting from before you joined the ILO.
Yes. It's interesting because I joined the ILO in 1979. So prior to that, my understanding of cooperatives was limited to my academic studies. I studied in Germany, in Marburg, at the Philipp University. And this university offered courses in cooperative management. One of the few at the time that offered university level courses in cooperative management. And this was a good thing because they offered scholarship for participants from developing countries. And we found ourselves from different countries in Marburg studying cooperatives. In my batch, we were 4 from Cameroon. And we studied cooperatives. First of all, we went through the language studies. We did German. Yeah, exactly. The courses were in German. I think the language courses were 9 months. And after the 9 months, you had to pass an exam to qualify to be registered at the university. If you didn't pass, you were sent back home. You couldn't continue. So, passed with flying colors because my German was pretty good at the time, if I can say so myself. And then after the studies, we went to university. We graduated, and 79, I left Germany to come back, to come to the ILO.
And how did that happen, coming to the ILO?
Well, I think the interesting thing in this story is that we had very, very good professors at the university in Germany where we studied. I'm thinking of Dülfer, who was the director then of the particular branch in which I was studying. Then Münkner, who was world famous. He was my teacher in law. Then we had Hanel and Kuhn for agricultural cooperatives. So those were very, very good teachers. They provided us with a sound background. And at the end of the study, I was looking for ways to add a little bit to my knowledge because I wanted to go back home and teach at the university. So I registered for a postgraduate course. I did a postgraduate course in Göttingen on agricultural economics. And after the postgraduate course in Göttingen in agricultural economics, there was an offer for participants from developing countries who wanted to go back home to join a sort of seminar that lasted 6 months. And during that seminar, they would be prepared in higher education and international development that gave us some basis to be able to teach at university.
Back home in your country?
Back home, exactly. And they offered us facilities. They were helping also to go back and settle home, etc. So I took that course, and lo and behold, during the course, one of the seminars that we had was on team building. And the person who was running this 1-week program on team building was Mr. Sperling. Sperling was from the Turin Center. He's the deputy director in charge of training, and he's looking for somebody who is expert in cooperatives. And at the end of the course, he says to me, would you like to come with me at the center, Turin Center, to help us with the program we have? We have 35 Nigerians coming, and we have not enough faculty to train them. That's how I was hired.
That's how you got started in Turin Center.
Yes, when he said Turin Center, I wasn't quite sure what he was talking about. But that's how I started.
This is 1979.
That was 1979. I arrived in Turin in 1979, and I started my very first course. I arrived as a faculty member in support of 2 people who were already there running courses. Martinez Holgado and Mike Jacob, to whom I pay tribute because they were in my formative years in the ILO, and they were very good influence. At the time, cooperative was also very strong in Turin because we also had the MATCOM project based there. Many people forget that MATCOM was first based in Turin at the center. Tell us a little
bit about MATCOM.
Well, when I arrived in Turin, MATCOM was already a strong project, ongoing project. I think it was 79. MATCOM was probably in its second or third year. And the team was already there. Leonard Scarrett, who was the CTA of the project, Chief Technical Advisor. Roald Gustafsson, who was the editor. Excellent professionals. And Just Jonkers. Just Jonkers was a Belgian who was sort of the third person in the team of three, just eventually moved to the EU, and he worked in the EU, probably still in operation if he hasn't retired. And MATCOM was in Turin during that time. They were producing training material. And since I came to Turin for providing training, we were collaborating a lot with MATCOM, with the MATCOM project.
Which was this big training
Exactly.
program
MATCOM was Material and Technique for Cooperative Management Training. That was a ILO project financed first by Sweden and eventually taken over also by Norway, Finland, and Denmark. The Nordic countries. But initially that was Sweden, and then the others joined together and it became a Nordic project. And that project went on for many years, producing training material for cooperatives.
In 40 languages,
in so many different
manuals,
languages. And you know what, the good thing about MATCOM was that MATCOM enlisted the support of the top in writing, editing. We had somebody called Malcolm Harper. Malcolm Harper is so well known in the topic. If you look up Malcolm Harper, he wrote practically half of the MATCOM books. That gave MATCOM technically a very strong basis. Exactly. And as an editor, Roald Gustafsson, who was a project staff, I don't think I've met in my life any other editor as good as that guy. He really added value to this material. So they eventually left Turin to go to Vienna at the decision of the cooperative branch at the time, because of the slowness of the postal service in Italy, because they had to stay in touch with various cooperative colleges in different countries. The MATCOM was producing material, but also disseminating it through different colleges.
And it was by mail, right?
Yeah, and it was by mail. And they had to work, and there was no internet, and they had to work with cooperative colleges in different countries. They really had a network. They were very well established. And they had, at one point, over 80 associate experts just in different countries working as MATCOM liaison officer.
Wow. So how many you said?
At one point, when I was in headquarters, much later on, it could have reached 80 because they were really everywhere. They were really everywhere. And they came for training. They did the training, and then they were sent to the field. So that's the history of my background in COOP. You know, started in Turin after my training in Marburg.
And then you moved from Turin to Geneva.
Yes.
To work on cooperative
education, yes.
Education.
During one of my courses, I arrived in Turin in 79, and from 1979 to 1983, I was in Turin. I ran several courses. I started working with Martinez Salgado and Mike Jacob initially, but eventually I became a program manager when I got a fixed contract at Turin. And because I became a program manager, I had my own courses. And Martinez Salgado, Mike Jacob continued, and I had my own. And then eventually later on somebody came in who became also very well known in the branch, who was Tristram Eastwood, who also ran COPEC later on. And we were the four of us running courses in cooperatives. And in 1983, the then head of the COOP branch in Geneva visited my program because we had this tradition. It was Mr. Helbongo. Mr. Helbongo, he visited my program in Turin because the tradition at the time was that when we have a course, these courses lasted 3 months.
Wow.
So when you had a course, you invited the head of the cooperative branch to come and address the group so that they know that ILO Turin Center is part of the ILO and this connection to the ILO. And when Helbongo came to the course, he spoke to the participants. And before he left, he went to see my boss then, the director of the center, Mr. Abouganem. He told him, I've lost 3 people in my branch. One has retired, one has left to go to a different thing, and the other one is just leaving us now. I need somebody, and I've seen this gentleman in the classroom. Would you please let him come and work with me? And that's a request that was made. The request was not granted directly, but eventually it worked out. I came in.
Didn't want to let
that's
you go.
right, in May 1983. I think I remember it's May because it was a holiday, 1st of May.
1st of May.
I traveled by road here to Geneva, and I was met on my arrival by Ken Gordon, who was then one of the people in the cooperative branch. Exactly. And he received me. And then I was assigned here to work at the Cooperative Education and Training section of the branch under Mr. Pekka Pilvio.
Okay.
And I worked with Mr. Pekka Pilvio until 1988.
A Finnish co-op educator.
That's right, the Finnish co-op educator who was then in charge of the cooperative section, or the training section of the cooperative branch. And we worked together until I left, actually, to go to the field. Okay. Yes.
And during your years, and you left the ILO in 2010,
yes.
From 1983 to 2010, different capacities, but cooperatives were
key part of that work. Yes, I think what happened in 1983 when I arrived here is that the cooperative branch was structured in such a way that we had 4 sections in the branch. It was a golden years because we had staff. You can imagine a branch with 4 sections, and each section having 2 to 3 people. That was quite a lot of people.
And this is a reflection of how the cooperative standing in the international development at the time. We are talking early 80s, and cooperatives were a key development institution for rural areas.
We were having the 2nd ranked delivery in the ILO at the time. 2nd in all technical cooperation programs. Second to, I think it was rural development, Department of Rural Development, and with public work, special public work program. We had this strong going cooperative branch at the time with really a good staff structure, and we could cover almost any aspect of the cooperatives. And when I finished in 1998, I left to go to the field. I didn't finish with the co-ops. I went to Abidjan and I became a regional advisor for cooperatives. And that is something I did until 1991. So like my career in the ILO, going from the Turin Center, coming at headquarters, always working for training. And when I moved to Abidjan in 1988, I started working as advisor for policy because we had 25 countries in Africa and 25 countries in West and East. And we were 2 of us, and we sort of worked together in this particular field.
But the field had started changing then in the 90s.
I think
structural adjustment.
Yes, I think we were, when I joined, cooperatives were very popular. We had several courses going on parallel in Turin. When I say we had 4 faculty members dealing with cooperatives in Turin, it means we had quite a lot of activities going on. And these courses were big because some of the courses were 20 people, 25. We even have courses with 35 people.
And it would be one country?
Sometimes one, sometimes mixed. Depends on the type of course and who finances the course. And the cooperatives, I'm not saying they had a better reputation. I think they were considered as a very, very good tool for development, and a lot of emphasis was being put on cooperatives, and we also can witness that with major programs such as ACOPAM and MATCOM that went on at the time. Those programs were very big. They went on for many years, decades for some, and it just shows how popular cooperatives were. Also, sign that cooperatives were very popular then is the fact that almost every country had a cooperative college, at least one. Some countries had more than one.
Even the Francophone.
Even the Francophone had cooperative colleges. Nigeria had 3 cooperative colleges that we were working with. There was one in Ibadan, Enugu, and Jos. And we, Zaria Jos, we worked with those cooperative colleges from Turin. We trained the staff from the college, and sometimes we went back for follow-up activities with those people. And then, because you mentioned structural adjustment, I think it's important to come back to it because where I'm heading is that all of a sudden, all of that support started going down because there was the structural adjustment program imposed on the country, and that structural adjustment program simply meant that the countries had to reduce drastically their budgets, and they were lots of conditionality put on the country to be able to get loans, and and get support for development. And it was not a choice, it was imposed in that sense. No country could actually stay out of it. What did it mean for the cooperative movement? It meant all the support that was going to the cooperatives was gone. Even if we are all proponent of the fact that government should stay out of the cooperative, government still have a role to play in the sense that government provide the environment, government could provide the support, and education and so on, and all those support disappeared overnight, which means the government had to reduce their budget, which means the ministries were cut, and cooperative were deemed to be private sector activities, so private sector no intervention from government. And gradually we could see, and we witnessed that also in the organizations like the ILO, where the support to cooperative gradually, but little by little, just dwindled until they virtually disappeared. And that took a long time, because obviously when you build expectations and you promise a lot and all of a sudden nothing comes, people lose interest and they lose faith. And for a very, very long time, we were in that phase where people had no more faith in cooperatives, and you could actually hear people say, we don't even want to hear the name cooperative because they don't work. Obviously, it's not because cooperatives don't work. They've proven that they work. They have worked everywhere. In many countries, they've been very, very famous and they have done a lot. But in that particular context, because of the way it was handled, it didn't work.
This sharp cut.
Sudden, in the middle of something that was promising, people lost interest. And what we are seeing now is actually a comeback. It's sort of like revival, renaissance, or whatever we want to call it. It's coming back because obviously we realize today that this is something that you cannot just leave aside or forget. Cooperatives are there to stay. And
key institution.
The key institution, key instrument for getting people out of poverty. Just as simple as that, getting people out of poverty.
You mentioned MATCOM, you mentioned ACOPAM. That was also a highlight program.
These were very important, of course, these were very important flagship program of the ILO. What people don't realize today, maybe for those people who are getting involved in cooperative today, we had 2 programs in cooperative education and training at the time. The ICA was running a program called CEMAS, Cooperative Education Advisory Service Material. And that program was led by Sam Shu. And Sam was here in Geneva, based at the Tanzania. Exactly, Sam. He was in ICA in Geneva, here in the ICA office, and he was actually our counterpart. So we were doing MATCOM for management and he was doing CEMAS for the members. And it lasted quite a long time. I think he was here for almost like 3-4 years.
We still work with him.
Yes, I know that that's right. He's still in Moshi and he's still very active. He's a very, very old friend. We worked together here and he was just across the road. We had meetings and we combined together with the ICA when we did, like, for example, he was strictly for member education, and we did staff training, management training, leadership training, and we complemented each other and we worked really hand in hand. They produced a very, very good material for like primers for cooperative education for members, so that member knows what they're getting into, and it was very complementary. So that was one of the flagship program that worked together with the MATCOM program. The ACOPAM program was more like support to World Food Program activities in Africa.
In West Africa, was it?
In West Africa, in selected countries in West Africa. Those 2 programs lasted quite a long time. Right? They lasted like
across decades.
Yes, exactly. And they covered different countries. And I followed these programs in the field when I was regional advisor in Abidjan from 88 to 1991. 91, I came back here to be part of the office of the Director General then.
If you were to reflect on what were some of the key highlights, what do you take as, I've contributed to this work in a meaningful, substantive way, and I know there's many of those. If there is like 1 or 2 that you would like to share with us.
I think, well, if you ask me like that, it's really difficult to pinpoint one particular activity or program or project. But what I think I'm pretty proud of is that I was the one who wrote the Director General's report for the African Regional Conference in Harare in 1988.
There
was a report
on
on
cooperatives.
cooperatives in Africa, and that was the first report on cooperatives Africa for decades.
Okay.
I don't remember when the last one was.
Okay.
And it was a report that took stock on where the cooperatives stood in Africa in 1988.
Wow.
And this was the time when the cooperatives were still sort of like
On the rise.
On the rise.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the debate in Harare in that, and it really was very, very fascinating because we had the employers, the workers, the governments, they were all supporting cooperatives, and we had a very good outcome. Director General of the time, Mr. Francis Mansha, came to shake hands with me and congratulate me for a report that he promised he would read when he goes back. It was his own report, but he was that's to show you how good he the mood was on cooperatives.
Right.
And that I would say is the highlight. I probably think that also earned me some promotion, because at the time when I wrote the report, when I came from Turin, I was a P3.
Wow.
And I stayed P3 practically until that report. And when the regional advisor position became vacant in Abidjan, and I said I would like to go for that job, I jumped from P3 to P5 because all regional advisors were P5. And nobody questioned my competence in handling the job because of the report I had already delivered then. And that really proved, that really was one highlight.
You were up to the task.
That I could do the job, and I did the job. And when I was in Abidjan, we did quite a good job in promoting. The second highlight for me, probably, I would say, it's a MATCOM project. I think I was involved directly in the MATCOM project after I came to headquarters. And when Pekka Pilvio sort of left, or he handed over to me gradually before he left, I was in charge of the MATCOM project. That is, I was supervising the MATCOM project from the point of view, huge endeavor, from the point of view of headquarters. MATCOM by then had moved to Vienna, and we used to go for review meetings regularly. It was a very well run project. Leonard was a good manager, and that was, I think, because the reason I say it's a highlight is that we still
to this day get requests,
and I still use it today. So I think it's really a material that is everlasting. And I think that was one of the legacies of the ILO to the cooperative movement, to capacity building in cooperative, because it introduced a lot of new things, like how professional cooperative managers must be. That really was something that MATCOM insisted on, professionalize the management of cooperative, because if we have problems in cooperatives in the developing world, Africa in particular, those two problems come from one, governance, and the second one, manager. It's never a problem of money. It's never a problem of resources. It can't be.
Although people think it might be.
Well, no, they're wrong. They're wrong. They're probably looking at the wrong problems. The problem is never, ever the problem of funds. The problem is governance, and the problem is professionalism, management.
Knowledge of management,
understanding how to manage this business. Because to me, I would always say that it's more complex and more difficult to manage a cooperative than a traditional business. When you manage a cooperative, you're managing a business that is owned by 200 people, 300 people who have a say. And when you're managing a traditional business, you can decide and go ahead and continue without anybody checking on you.
This needs actually buy-in, and
you need buy-in, you need convincing, you need at the same time you need to be a business also, because you're competing with businesses outside. So that tension is there all the time, and that makes it more difficult to manage a cooperative than to manage other types of businesses. That's my take. My take is that problems that we think are the most important in solving cooperatives, issues in developing countries, are usually not really what they are. Of course, you need capital, but if you have the knowledge, you know how to get it.
How to get it as well.
Of course.
You continued with co-op education in your life
Yes.
after the ILO.
Yes. Yeah, I left the ILO in 2010.
Okay.
When I became 60, I went straight away. I decided to leave on the last day of my 60s.
Wow.
And then when I left the ILO, I started a small consulting firm here in Ferney. I was based in Ferney, but the small consulting firm, I wanted to sort of broaden the horizon and consult in different topics. So I was sort of, but 99% of the jobs I got were from cooperatives. So I just decided that was nonsense to keep on the firm just to do that. So I just decided to focus on cooperatives and just do cooperatives. So I did a lot of stints for the UNDP. I did something for UN Women. I went to South Sudan 3 times in 3 years. We're building women cooperatives in food production. And that was a time when South Sudan was quite difficult to visit, but we did.
When was that?
That was 2012, 13, and 14, 3 years. And I went 3 times in 3 years for 3 months each. So I did quite a bit of work there. And in 2016, I was approached by the International Finance Corporation, IFC, to support them in a program that they had on cooperatives. Because they started IFC. Yes, they started Co-op Academy. They started the program with Co-op Academy together with Cargill. And they started that program agricultural. Cargill is an exporter of crop like cocoa, and they're working in Cote d'Ivoire and other countries, Ghana, etc. And in Cote d'Ivoire, they decided to promote, because Cargill decided practically as a policy to source the cocoa only from cooperatives. Yeah, and that was a good decision as far as I'm concerned. And in order to support cooperatives in being good business partners, they launched the Co-op Academy. And that Co-op Academy provides training and capacity building or leadership training for cooperative leaders in those countries. So all the cooperatives that are in the Cargill supply chain are going through that program.
Academy.
And they needed somebody as a master trainer. The master trainer is the one who trained the trainers. And together with a team of 6, 3 cooperative experts, including myself and 2 US based. We are 3, and 3 instructional designers. We design training programs, which have now morphed into what we call ALP, Agribusiness Leadership Program, but it's basically cooperative training. And we provide training in different countries, in different projects, for different clients that IFC supports. So we've done it in Cote d'Ivoire now for the Co-op Academy. We're still doing it. It's still going on for the next 4 years. And we did it in Senegal for Kiren, for dairy production, for dairy. We did it in Cambodia for rice. There's some Ethiopian for Ethio Chicken, for Heineken. All those people that IFC is supporting, they are now getting into building the basis for the supply chain into cooperatives and through cooperatives. And we are providing training to these cooperatives to help them, trying to set up some kind of win-win. You know, you get what
stronger negotiation power, stronger capacities.
That's right, exactly. To manage the business, exactly, and to get something out of it specifically. You know, we want
higher returns to
higher returns for their produce for their produce too. That's what we want, and that's what we're doing now. Yeah, exactly.
So is this a departure, because IFC is a part of the World Bank Group, right? So is
well,
it a departure, or is it a
it's a comeback? Maybe it's a shift.
What do you think?
No, honestly, it's a welcome development. It's really, really, really a welcome development, because I think maybe nobody will actually own to it and say it was a mistake, but what happened during the structural adjustment years turned out to be a mistake. It wasn't a success, and I don't think anybody would want to come back to those years. But the thing is, the impact of those measures on the cooperative movement has been extremely negative in many countries, because we had a long period of time when cooperatives lacked everything. They lacked training, but they also lacked supervision. They lacked auditing. They all those services were provided before, and they were needed to build a strong movement, and all of that disappeared. If we see major players like IFC coming back into cooperatives, indirectly supporting cooperatives because they're also supporting the businesses that do business with cooperatives. And they have a big program like bringing cooperatives on the market. And they also have formed an alliance which work with producers organizations generally, which is called AMEA, which is bringing those organizations to the market and linking them to the markets. I think I see a shift, or at least a comeback. Maybe it's going to take a long time, but I think we have a possibility here to do something. If we miss the boat this time, I think it may really mean the end, because we having a chance to do it again, and everybody knows what we did well and what we did wrong. So everybody is very aware and very familiar with the problems that we may have, and I think nobody wants to repeat the mistakes of the past. So we have a chance, and I think it would be a good thing to seize that chance, that opportunity, and you should work together with the others to advance. And I think we're making an impact. We're making some impact. I can see in the system that we have in place now, I can see that we have good results. Why? Because we have, you see, we're not doing training as usual. Just very, very shortly, I'll explain what we do.
I was going to ask you, how has the training methodology approach changed across these years?
Okay. When we had MATCOM, we had a training program that was designed and that was promoted. You see, MATCOM was not just producing training material, which included methodologies, of course, changing in methodology, moving from lecturing to actual participative training classrooms. Yes. And we train with the same curriculum. That is financial management. We take financial management, we go to India, we adapt it to the Indian context, we teach. We take it to Cameroon, we adapt it to Cameroon context, and we train. And we disseminate. It was a very big part of the MATCOM program through the associate experts that I talked about. We disseminate this program, and we want cooperative colleges to adopt it and change the way they run courses. So that was that approach. Now with the IFC, what we do is we work with a company, which is a private company in the Netherlands called Scope Insight. Scope Insight is sort of like a rating company. They go to the cooperative and they assess the cooperative and they rate the cooperative. They give it a score from 1 to 5. 1 very bad, 5 very good. They rate the cooperative in 8 dimensions. Governance, financial management, operations, market, sustainability, and so on. 8 dimensions. Each dimension has a sub-dimension. Like governance, you have internal management, you have internal organization, and so on and so forth. So each of those is also rated. So they spend time with a cooperative, they study the cooperative, and they come back with a score and with a good report, comprehensive report that tells the cooperative, here are the scores that you have in these and these and these dimensions. Here are your weaknesses in these and these, and here are your strengths in this and this time. So once that report is out, we come in. We go to the cooperative and we train the cooperative on their weaknesses. We look at what their
scores and what needs improvement.
Exactly. After the training, we spend 12 months coaching the cooperative. So we send trainers in the cooperative to coach them, because during the training we identify areas in which they need coaching. We write them in the development plan for the year, for 12 months, and we send people in to coach them in solving those problems. At the end of the 12 months, we do another evaluation using the same tool we used at the beginning and see if they've improved, for instance, from 2.5 to 4.
Right.
Then we know that we've done a good job, because they're now on the way to professionalize their management.
Right.
If they haven't improved, we have to look for what went wrong. So that's the comprehensive system that we put in place now. More systemic and hands-on. And with purpose. The goal is to change, to improve from
where baseline
to that's what we're doing now. And we've been doing it since 2016.
Very good.
Yes.
Very good. But during this time, we also see here the re-emergence, perhaps we could say, of the other types of social and solidarity economy organizations. In addition to co-ops being a central, of course, organizational type. but also others. Could you tell us your thought about this larger social and solidarity
well, it's good you say
frame?
it's good you say re-emergence, because this is not new.
Okay.
We're talking a lot about it now because the conditions today are probably more suitable to talking about them. We can see we went through a crisis. We had several crises, in fact, and people are looking for some new ways of doing things. So this is just coming back again. But social economy is old. It's an old concept. It's very, very old. I mean, if you look back to France, the review of social economy that is published there is from the exactly from the 1800s, and they have been publishing practically non-stop until today.
That's true.
And we had some good cooperations also with some social economy institutions like the Roche in France and so on during the time of my time in Coop. So this is just to say it's not new.
Okay.
It's something coming back.
Yeah.
Maybe there is one aspect to it that could probably be considered new, is that actually people are not just talking about it now, they are sort of more trying to do something about it. So that the fact that they're not just talking about it, but trying
from theory to practice.
Exactly, from theory to practice may mean that this is something that might be lasting. But when you look at the concept very, very carefully, what we can see is that it's just a list of different types of organizations and the way they do things. You can name cooperatives, associations, mutuals, and so on and so forth. And we said they form the social and solidarity.
So we are talking about the parts.
Yes, we are now just listing the parts. We are actually very far from understanding exactly what that concept means in economic terms, in terms of doing business, in terms of how they link to each other, and in terms of how they could better operate together. So there is still a lot of work to do in understanding exactly what this means. And I'm not sure that this work has been done, because so far people are just listing the parts and counting the parts and talking about what they are, what they do. It's basically like a mantra. They are this and this and this, and they do this and this and this, but exactly how should that operate? The most advanced of these organizations are cooperatives, because cooperatives are not new. Of course, associations are also very old, but cooperatives as form of business recognized as such, with their own specific laws in different countries, which says how they should be run, how they should be operated. They are very old institutions. They've been studied, they've been analyzed, and there are quite a lot of publications about them. So we know cooperatives and we know how they work, but we are yet to know each of the other participants in the social and solidarity economy in the same way we know cooperatives. So my fear is that if we start talking about this more global thing, we may be missing something. That's practically my fear. It's not that it's not important. It's not that it's not relevant. It's we have to keep things in perspective. We have to keep things in perspective, because what we have already done and achieved with the cooperatives may disappear or may suffer from shifting the emphasis to something that is yet to be designed properly. We haven't designed it yet. There's no institution to design it, and no matter what happens today, everyone who is going into the field is treading into unknown territory. And unless some academics or some institutions like the ILO take the lead and start doing what they did in the cooperative at the beginning, that a lot of research, a lot of publication on that social economy to sort of explain what it is, because we didn't start in cooperative by sort of just promoting cooperative. We defined, we had the resolution.
You did the groundwork.
The groundwork was done, ILO recommendation was done, people understood what was going on.
Consensus on the definitions.
Exactly.
Methods of working.
We all know what a cooperative is. A group of people who set up a business to satisfy their own needs. These businesses are operated following principles and values. We know that. Now, can we say the same thing of the other proponents of the social and economic solidarity?
Maybe mutuals, yes, but
mutual, yes, but not
pretty
as
unique.
defined, not as specific and defined as cooperatives are. Cooperatives are
as economic and social institutions combined. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But cooperatives is very, very different in that sense, because they are extremely precise. And maybe just say, this is also one of the reasons why we have problems with cooperatives, is that many people say cooperative, but they really they don't know what they're talking about, or they don't understand, or they confuse it with something else. So when they judge cooperative and say cooperative don't work, when you go deeper into it and you try to analyze to understand what is it that don't, you immediately understand. Just, you don't need to have studied cooperatives, but you understand that what they are talking about is not cooperative.
Really cooperative.
And that is the problem that we are having. But we don't know what it's a good concept, it's a good thing, and the more the merrier, in fact, because if we have more institutions and organizations into this, that will be better. And maybe this is also a trend for the economy to come, because people are starting to feel that the dominant models are not delivering, and so it's not working. So it's probably a good thing. It's probably a good thing, but it's better to take time to understand it, and to make sure that we are not just into something like a fad, something like an idea, which tomorrow nobody will talk about, and it will just deflate and it will just disappear, and we would have wasted precious time and energy and resources going following a pipe dream. I don't think we should be that much into it. For the ILO has a role to play. Of course.
This was going to be my question to you. You know, ILO is a running theme in this conversation. What has been the role of the ILO, and what do you think is the relevance and continued relevance of the ILO, both for cooperatives and perhaps, as you mentioned, this wider social solidarity economy?
Of course, ILO could definitely start by thinking about how they're going to embrace or address that new coming thing, which is the social and solidarity economy. How are we going to do it? When I say how are we going to do it, I mean we're not going to just do it as an afterthought, or as something we append to something else, or as something that is just added, or something that, you know, it's going to be I feel for me it's important to understand how we're going to approach it. So that I think it's, to me, it's not something we can ignore, because it could be important in the future. It's not something you can ignore. But at the same time, it's not something we want to throw the baby out with the bathwater by saying, "Coop, we will just leave it because it's already there, and we'll move to the other thing." We can't mix the two. Never lose the Coop identity. It's been there for 100 years. It will still be there in the next 100 years.
In the world.
If it is not in the ILO, it will still be in the world. But it will be a pity for the ILO to have done it for 100 years and leave it. I mean, it will still continue to be there. And the ICA is there. The ICA is strong. The ICA will continue. And ILO has a part to play, and has played that part in the past brilliantly. It can continue, and it should.
Any other parting words, messages for us from this very informative conversation?
I think
Thank you for your.
We are looking proudly at so many years of work on cooperatives. And believe me, when I go to a country, even today, when I go to a country and I meet somebody in a cooperative movement at a certain level, senior level maybe even, and they say, "Remember, you were my trainer in Turin." I say, "Well, yes, that's good. ILO has done something, because that's good." It still happens to me. For IFC, I went with a delegation from Washington, D.C. to Senegal recently, and we had a meeting with the cooperative movement there. We were in a meeting room, a round table. There was everybody seated around the table. Our head of delegation starts introducing people and said, "Let me introduce your delegation. To my right is Mr. Ndjonkou." They say, "Oh, madam, you don't introduce him here. He was my trainer in Turin." That was the head of the other side. "He trained me in Turin in 81. So that's ILO. That's not me. That's ILO. I'm really talking about the ILO. So I think ILO should try to recapture that usefulness, but they can only do it practically if they stay true to the cooperative spirit, to the cooperative value, to the cooperative principles, and to the collaboration with the International Cooperative Alliance, which is the spokesperson of the ICA, of the cooperative. And this collaboration with the ILO is not new. It's been there forever, and that should be there, should be strengthened. You know, we have a very strong link with the cooperative movement, and I think it would be a pity to lose that. That should not deter from the solidarity cooperative movement. As I said, it should just be treated differently. That's the only thing I could say. I think other than that, can only wish us another 100 years like these ones, like the last one. Exactly.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Really appreciate
my
your
pleasure.
time and
my pleasure. As I said, cooperatives for me anytime.
Thank you.
That's my pleasure. Thanks a lot.